Khomeini was against giving land to the peasants and abolishing feudalism and giving votes to women, and that's why he then opposed the white reforms, and he was sent into exile. So completely reactionary. And originally he went to Turkey, then I think to Kuwait, and then Iraq, and he spent most of his years in Iraq in Najaf, and that's where he wrote his book called Velayat al-Faqih, which was his way of an Islamic rule, an Islamic system. If the Iranian intellectuals, if the left-wing intellectuals had read the book, or some people criticized the Shah, saying like he should have made that book legal and actually disseminated it within Iran, so everyone could read it and say, "Oh my God, what is this reactionary guy?" Although again, some people argue even if they had done that, people would have said, "No, he's making this up. This is this is fake and is fabricated." But anyways, the left didn't really delve into what this guy was about. See, for me, every time I say Islamist, I'm talking about political Islam. I'm talking about radical Islam. I'm not talking about someone who's got spiritual faith and chooses to practice the Islamic way for his spiritual. So I've got no problems with that. I have a lot of respect for that person as well. I'm not a spiritual person myself, but I respect if someone wants to be spiritual and they decide to they're more comfortable with the Islamic practice of their spirituality, then that's fine. It's the political Islam that I'm against. It's the radical Islam that I'm against, yeah? And this political radical Islam that Khomeini started, or he reinvigorated, is actually what far right is. If you want far right, there's nothing more far right than radical Islam. Everything about them is far right, right? So the left went to bed with a far right ideology because they didn't research it through. All these people that claim to be intellectuals, that you think that they'd be the people that would actually look into something, would read this guy's book to see what does he mean by Islamic rule, and then decide whether they want to go to bed with him. But I think what encouraged them more to go with radical Islam, they realized that the clergy has got more ability to organize a mass movement than this guerrilla warfare thing. The guerrilla warfare thing never got public support. It never became a mass movement. So in the absence of political parties, you had this network of mosques and clergy and ayatollahs and all that. That was like a sophisticated political party that could organize mass movement, that could bring the masses on the streets and organize large demonstrations. Because they're they were considered to be like illiterate and sort of like outdated by the left. I think the left thought, they're good at sort of like bringing the masses to the streets. We can use that. We can ride on the back of that, and then we can lead them. And this is exactly what the left is thinking in the West as well. I think they recognise the ability of radical Islam to make a mass movement, and they think they can then ride on the back of that and lead them. It doesn't work like that. I mean, most of the Iranian left, they knew the Soviet history better than Iranian history. They'd read more books about Bolshevism and Marx and Lenin and Russian history than about Iranian history. And then I think they were looking at the Russian Revolution. They thought, right, okay, so the Tsar was overthrown by Kerensky, moderate person, and then the Bolsheviks came and overthrew Kerensky, and that's how they established communism. So we'll use Khomeini to overthrow the Shah, and then afterwards we'll overthrow Khomeini. Khomeini will be like, or his provisional prime minister would be like Kerensky, and then we will overthrow them and we will come to power. It didn't work out like that. And they got annihilated. And I mean, you're asking me about like, what's the situation left in Iran? It doesn't really exist, to be honest with you. Nothing like what it was before 1979 anyway. I mean, I can't remember the last Iranian I met that claims to be a Marxist-Leninist, or the Marxist-Leninist as it was. They may sort of like make some sort of like modernity into Marxism, Leninism and that, but the traditional Marxist-Leninism is dead. And a lot of them were massacred in 1988 in the what became known as the massacre of Iranian political prisoners in 1988. So what happened was all these left-wing people, a lot of them got killed, executed in 1981. The rest that were in prison, and they included young children, teenagers as young as 13, 14, pregnant women, that maybe just handed out a pamphlet in the street or something, and they were arrested. And as the war with Iraq was coming to an end, Khomeini was worried that with all the dissatisfaction after the war, and these people finishing their prison sentences, they will come back out into society and they might organize a revolt against the Islamic regime. So he ordered them to be all executed. So you had these kangaroo courts, and they were bringing on these prisoners, and they were asking them two questions: do you believe in God? Are you willing to renounce your organization? And if they said no to any of these two questions, that's it. They were passed on for execution. At least something like 5,000 people were summarily executed. I mean, 5,000. When I say 5,000 people, 5,000 people whose names have been registered. It could be many more. And it was terrible. It was kids as young as 16, 15, who maybe made an error of judgment. They became politicized, and they sold a newspaper for some left-wing organization in the street, or handed out pamphlets. Pregnant women were executed. It was terrible. And then that was it. That was the end of the left in Iran. So this is why I keep telling the left here. I said, look, you keep going on about the far right, the far right. The far right that I see is the political Islam, is the radical Islam. And you're going to bed with them. And they will annihilate you. They will annihilate all of us. Why can you not learn from the experience of your Iranian comrades?